positive news today for you guys. I think you guys will find this interesting. Don't worry, Todd. I have some negative news too, and I'm saving that for the end of the show. We're going to start off with the positive news first. Yeah. But there's a worker who was fired for a positive cannabis test. Wins another court ruling, you guys. See, you thought I was going to start off negative, but I went positive. A state Supreme Court justice has upheld the jury verdict that awarded more than $191,000 to a wastewater treatment worker who was fired by the city of Amsterdam 4 years ago after testing positive for cannabis that had been prescribed to him for chronic back pain. The city of Amsterdam had waged a fierce post-verdict legal battle seeking to overturn or reduce the jury's verdict. But the decision issued by the state Supreme Court Justice Rebecca A. Slezak also ordered the city to reinstate Thomas Appholtz to his wastewater treatment job, as well as pay an additional $149,107 for his legal fees, including any other amount of attorney fees that the court may deem reasonable after Appholtz's counsel submits on an affidavit. The outcome stands as the first trial verdict in New York in which an employer was found to have violated state human rights laws that deem someone with a medical marijuana prescription as having a disability and makes them part of a protected class. The Compassionate Care Act, allowing medical prescriptions of marijuana, was signed into law back in July of 2014 and took effect January of 2016, and marijuana laws legalized for adult use back in 2021. The city's legal team had sought to scuttle the jury's verdict and legal proceedings on multiple fronts, including whether Appholtz, 44, had disclosed all of his outside income after being fired, and the judge found that roughly $200 in tips that Appholtz was paid while bartending as a volunteer at a private Catholic club between 2020 and last year did not amount to fraud. Appholtz, who was 44, was fired by Mayor Michael Cinquinati after he tested positive for marijuana back in February of 2020 during a random drug screening. Appholtz was fired under the provisions of a last chance agreement that had been provided to him by the city when he also tested positive for marijuana back in 2017. The agreement had noted that any additional violations of the city's drug policies could result in his immediate termination. But a year before his second positive test, Appholtz had been prescribed marijuana for the treatment of back pain. That prescription was in effect at the time he tested positive, and according to court records, Appholtz notified city officials that he was a certified patient in the state's medical marijuana program and had a valid Department of Health certification for a medical marijuana prescription. In quotes, the city's decisions have already cost and will continue to cost taxpayers substantial and often unnecessary amounts of money, said Kevin A. Lubedard, Appholtz's attorney. What business is in it for the city to say what medicine a doctor can prescribe for an employee off duty? The city should get out of Mr. Appholtz's private doctor-patient decisions and let him just do the job which he excelled in. The jury's verdict last year left the option for Appholtz to file for reinstatement for his job, as well as to seek compensation for his legal fees. In both outcomes, he won. The Compassionate Care Act recognized what lawmakers said were positive medical benefits of marijuana components and initially authorized certain doctors to prescribe its use for serious medical conditions. The law has since been adjusted to allow doctors to prescribe marijuana for any reason, including anxiety and insomnia. And Lubedard said that Appholtz took the marijuana prescription in capsule form on non-work days. He never used it at work and only in the evening at home when his pain was at its worst. He said the jury found the city officials had refused to provide him an accommodation for his medical condition even after he informed them of his valid medical marijuana prescription. And 2 years ago, the State Office of Cannabis Management launched a medical cannabis certification system that expanded patient access to the plant by leaving its uses up to healthcare practitioners. But The use of marijuana to treat medical conditions has not been without its critics. A coalition of anti-cannabis interests filed a lawsuit last year in the state Supreme Court in Albany seeking to overturn New York's legalization of marijuana, comparing the industry to tobacco companies that made fraudulent claims about their products. The group cited information that they contended shows that marijuana consumption is harmful and that claims made about its medical benefits are unfounded and dangerous. In quotes, false advertising may mislead vulnerable patients to and the public, the complaint states. Medical use many inadvertently result in addiction, increased risk of psychosis, mental or psychological impairment, lung damage when smoked, and complications for unborn children when used during pregnancy. The presence of medical marijuana dispensaries may increase access to adult use marijuana for minors, and they also say that marijuana remains a Schedule I controlled substance under federal law, a list that now includes bath salts, heroin, ecstasy, and acid. And the Food FDA also promulgates rules that note marijuana has a high potential for abuse and that its use as a dietary supplement has not been approved. Many of these products being sold in retail medical marijuana outlets in New York and other states are edibles that contain THC and CBD, and the lawsuit also cites information it says indicates the claims about the medical benefits of THC and CBD have not been subjugated to studies that satisfy the FDA standards for determining safety and effectiveness, you guys. Well, I will say this. This is a story we covered a long time ago, and I want to say congratulations to this gentleman on fighting the good fight and ultimately coming out with a victory. I know it was pretty tough, and I'm sure it was, but nonetheless, good job, sir, and thank you for what you've done for the people. And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all have to say about this?
I think it's great. CBD is not THC. It's just that simple. And for him to have to go through that is utterly ridiculous. And I don't know if you heard, but the Supreme Court also agreed to hear a case about a former commercial truck driver who was fired after he failed a drug test for marijuana. He bought that CBD-rich stuff from medical marijuana.
It's I will report on that story soon, Todd. And there's some interesting,
there you go.
Very interesting factoids in that story.
Yeah. If you saw in the comments, I was like, "Yo, is Saman's story the same as Jay?" Like,
right?
Nah,
I mean, look, I'm surprised it hasn't happened more. To be honest, I'm surprised. Sorry.
Well, it looks like given our choice of headlines today, like it looks like these are more and more going to be prevalent. And if they want to ease up on these, looks like the DEA got to make a choice.
I mean, I do like factoids with my cannabinoids, so that's always a good combination. I was a little worried. I think the name of the judge in this article was Sleaze something. If your last name is Sleaze something, I think you either get a branding refresh or you don't go into a position of prominence. The challenge I have is just the use of taxpayer funds, because ultimately the taxpayer pays for the government's failed efforts to not accommodate the act that was passed in 2016 or what have you there. I was saddened when I thought about the fact that it was passed in 2016 there and 1996 in California. I'm like, how does it take 30 years for thoughtful regulations to promulgate it across the country? The problem with this is just cost benefit. It's going to always be easier for government to try to preemptively figure out solution to accommodate these HR issues than it is to get a burr under their saddle and get the snot beaten out of them and then have to pay $149K in legal.
Yeah. No, I feel
it's like the doctors scraping out the poo.
No, it's like a lot of states, including here in Nevada, that they don't even test for cannabis for jobs anymore because it's a legal state, both medically and recreationally, and it took that off the drug testing test. So they don't even test for it. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.